It's Tuesday, June 20th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. First up, we're going to chat with Chief of Police Paul McDonald. Then we'll have our in-depth coverage of the recent Flag Day ceremony at the Hyannis West Elementary School. And finally, we'll check in with DPW Director Dan Santos. All of that on this episode of Barnstable Today. But first, let's go ahead and get a look at today's top headlines. The town's Growth Management Department has officially changed its name. It will now be known as the Planning and Development Department. The name change is an effort to better reflect its emphasis on comprehensive planning, economic development, and addressing the Cape's housing needs. The renaming was championed by Town Manager Mark Ells and approved by Town Council May 4th. The Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulations will host a forum to address potential scams. Undersecretary John Chapman will come to Town Hall to help empower residents. Chapman will review ways to protect you from identity theft and current regulations to protect consumers. The forum will be held today at 11 a.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. Well, now is the time to get rid of that old paint, stain, or other hazardous waste you may be hanging on to. This Saturday, the Barnstable Transfer Station, along with the Barnstable County, will host a hazardous waste collection day. Participants must have a household trash sticker or free recycling sticker. The hazardous waste collection will take place from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the transfer station in Marston's Mills. Well, up next, we're going to chat with Chief of Police Paul McDonald. Joining me now live on the phone, we have with us Chief of Police Paul McDonald. Chief, a very busy weekend for you guys. Over the weekend, I want to talk to you a little bit. I know you were involved in the ferry crash over the weekend. Tell me a little bit about what your department, how they were dealing with the incident.
We get the call around 9:30. We dispatch multiple cruisers down to the area, and once we're down there, we met with the Hyannis Fire Chief, Dean Melanson. We then dispatch both of our patrol boats out there. The 27-foot regulator out of Hyannis, and we put a lake boat out, and they were out there to assist the steamship authority, their crew, any way they possibly could. Our primary responsibility for any type of these incidents like this is traffic control, pedestrian control, and provide any type of medical needs that we can to anybody that might be hurt. So we were out there almost till 4 o'clock in the morning, because as night went on, the press began to show up, and then we had to control the traffic to get the ambulances in and out of the area. The streets in Hyannisport are pretty narrow. So we were out there. Our main role is to assist the Coast Guard and the Hyannis Fire Department during the entire evening. It was quite an event, and the Hyannis Fire Department and the Coast Guard, they did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine a lot of people probably. Did you have people and onlookers wanting to flock to the area to get a glimpse of the incident?
You'd be amazing how many people showed up. It was a nasty night. It was rainy. It was windy. The surf was high, but a lot of people showed up. All the news media showed up, and of course they're trying to get close. But there were natural barriers there. Because of where the jetty was, there were natural barriers there. They were down Eugenia Force. They did set the cameras up, and they got some good footage. But the Coast Guard, the accident first occurred, the tide was a little high. The boat was kind of still in the water. Once the tide went out a little bit and the boat was secure, the front of it up on the rocks and the back of it in the mud, the boat became stable, and that was when they made the decision to start unload the boat, and they did a great job. No one got hurt during the unloading, so that's a good job for the fire department and the Coast Guard.
And thank goodness for that, Chief. I want to ask you, who investigates an incident like this?
That falls solely on the shoulders of the Coast Guard.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm sure they'll be investigating that. Another thing that kept you guys busy over the weekend, I know you're very involved in the Father's Day car show as well. How did that go?
This was a great event. I believe this is like the 33rd or 34th fourth year of this event, and it was a great day. It wasn't too sunny. It wasn't a beach day, so a lot of people showed up. And the number one question we get, well, how many people do you think showed up, Chief? And it's hard to say, but I would probably say, the show starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. It runs till 2, and I'd probably say in the course of a day, you probably have between 20 and 25,000 people pass through Main Street. It gets to a point there between like 11 and 1 o'clock. You can't even walk down Main Street. There were so many people there. So it's really a great event. It's a great event for downtown Hyannis, and every year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Last 10 years, we're saying it can't get any bigger. We can't handle any more people, but every year more people show up. It's a great time, and the people have a lot of money invested in these automobiles, and they love showing them off, and it's a great event.
And it's perfect that it falls on Father's Day.
Yep.
It's a tradition for so many families. So glad that the weather didn't rain on Sunday, and that we had a good attendance.
It was almost a perfect day for it. If it rains, those people who own those cars, they don't want to bring them out. If it's too sunny, people go to the beach. So this past Father's Day was probably the ideal day. Of course, they have the big craft show on the town green. That draws a lot of people. So it was a very, very busy day. But I got to tell you, even though we had that many people on Main Street Hyannis, I do not believe there was one call for service for the police department. So it was a great event, great family event for downtown Hyannis.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for telling us all about that. And one more thing I want to ask you about before I let you go today. Yep. I think you guys did deal with an armed robbery over the weekend.
We did have an armed robbery 2:30 Sunday morning. A couple of young ladies came up from Eastham. They were there. They made no bones about it. They were there to purchase some marijuana and some cocaine. And when they went to make the purchase, it was a drug rip. The individual ripped the money from their hands, stole their cell phone, knocked the woman to the ground, took off running. They called us. We got there in a matter of minutes. We eventually made 2 arrests, 2 brothers, Kalesto Salam, Salmon, and the brother who was identified as Kamali Salmon, 21 years old, charged with unarmed robbery, assault and battery, possession of a dangerous weapon. So it was a good grab, both of them being held for a dangerous hearing. We've run into these individuals multiple times, so it's a good pinch.
I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you, Chief, that the victims in this crime were willing to report it, being that it was involving a drug purchase like that.
Well, we get the original call as disturbance. So as the cruisers show up, the victims were driving away. So the police officer was heads up enough, thinking that vehicle might be involved, stopped the vehicle. The woman was bleeding from the head and from the knee area, where she was obviously knocked down and kicked. She then told us what happened, identified the individuals, and we would go back and make the arrest. You're right. If we didn't make the stop, she probably would have kept on going.
Yeah, because I'm sure they don't want to get in trouble. Well, thank you for joining us today, Chief. We really appreciate it, and congrats on that bust.
Thank you.
And hope you guys have a great week.
You too.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Our guest today, of course, Chief of Police Paul McDonald. Now, check out our in-depth coverage of the recent Flag Day ceremony at the Hyannis West Elementary School.
So good morning, students, staff, and visitors to Hyannis West, to our annual Flag Day ceremony. Each year, a different school in the town of Barnstable has the privilege of honoring our nation's flag. And this year, it's Hyannis West's turn. I'd first like to welcome some really special guests. We have Meg Mayo-Brown, our Superintendent of Schools. From the JFK Memorial Trust Committee, we have Lynn Poyant, Bob Jones, Hugh Finley, the JFK Memorial Trust Scholarship recipient, Dan Loisel, and representing the town of Barnstable, we have our new town manager, Andy Clyburn, Patty Machado, and our very own Officer Brian. So the idea of having a special day as Flag Day began over 130 years ago, when a school teacher in Wisconsin decided the students should celebrate the anniversary of our flag. And then in 1889, a long time ago, a kindergarten teacher in New York City planned a ceremony like the one we are having today. Many other Flag Day celebrations took place over the years, but it was not until August 3rd, 1949, that President Truman signed an act of Congress designating June 14th of each year as National Flag Day. The first official flag of the United States was created in 1777. exactly 240 years ago. It had 13 stripes, as it still does today, to represent the 13 colonies. And at the time, it had 13 stars for the same reason. The flag now has how many stars? 50! Nice job. It has 50 stars, which represents... You rock. The 50 states. You may have heard the flag called Old Glory before. In 1831, a ship captain in Salem, Massachusetts, was leaving on a voyage. He was presented with a flag containing 24 stars and hoisted it up onto a pole. As the wind caught it on the open sea, he exclaimed, "Old Glory!" And the name stuck for many years.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'm here on behalf of the John Fitzgerald Kennedy Memorial Trust Fund Committee, and that memorial is down by Veterans Beach. Do you all know where Veterans Beach is? You might take swimming lessons or sailing lessons there. You do, yes. And every year we receive a flag that was flown over the United States Capitol. And the United States Capitol, I'm sure you will learn more as you progress in your grades, but that's down in Washington, D.C. And it is flown over the Capitol, and then it is taken down, and it is delivered to the John Fitzgerald Kennedy Memorial Trust Fund Committee to be flown at the memorial, and then we take it down, and then we give it to an elementary school in the town of Barnstable. I'm going to present that to your good keeping.
time, I'd like to call up Lynn Poyant, the JFK Memorial Trust Fund Committee Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Amato. I have to tell you that this is my favorite day of the year, and you have outdone yourselves. Your voices singing strong and saying the Pledge of Allegiance so strong, it does a heart good. And if there's somebody that doesn't love America, if they heard you today, they would definitely fall in love with America. So thank you so much. I have the privilege of introducing to you someone who was in your shoes a number of years ago, who has received this JFK Memorial Trust Fund scholarship. And his name is Dan Loisel, and he will be telling you a little bit about himself because he's going to be going off to college in September. But he's a very special young man. We're going to be looking for a lot of things from him. And without further ado, Dan.
It was not too long ago that I was in your shoes, an elementary student, just like you are here today. As an elementary student, I looked up to a true leader, John F. Kennedy. He strived for equality for all, and as a president, he inspired many people to do amazing things. He set a goal to send the men to the moon. It was the boldness of the dream that got everyone behind it and made it possible to do what was most thought was impossible. And so it was on that July 20th, 1969, that Neil Armstrong stepped out onto the moon and took a giant leap for mankind. Our American flag was placed on the moon, and it's amazing to think that it still stands today. In the spring of 1962, President Kennedy made a proclamation about Flag Day. He stated that we need to remember that our flag represents strength and honor. And under this flag, we are free from oppression and have the opportunity for a better life. President Kennedy's life was far too short. Serving as our president for just over 1,000 days, during that time he caught the imagination of a new generation of Americans and got them to realize that as Americans, we could do anything we set our minds to. He believed in the saying, anything a man can conceive, he can believe and achieve. In closing, I remind you of his famous words, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So I ask you to take the advantage of this school and the town and all it has to offer. Think about what you can contribute to this community of Barnstable. John F. Kennedy would expect nothing less. Thank you.
O flag of our Union, O flag of our Union, to you will be true, to your red and white stripes and your stars on the blue. The emblem of freedom, the symbol of right, we children salute you, O flag fair and bright.
So I'm joined today with Buck Bailey, the Vice President of the U.S. Coast Guard Museum in the town of Barnstable. Thanks for being here with us, Buck.
Thank you for being here.
So what can Cape Codders expect to find when they come here to the U.S. Coast Guard Museum?
They can find a lot of history and information that they probably didn't know about the Coast Guard and its predecessor services, including the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service that was established in 1790, through the U.S. Life-Saving Service, the U.S. Lighthouse Service, the U.S. Lightship Service, even the Steamship Regulatory Authority, and all the different agencies that eventually made up the Coast Guard. A lot of our donations come from local Cape Codders. Most of the volunteers have some experience with either being in the Coast Guard or related to activities on the Cape. A lot of the artifacts are related, including this beach cart here, which was the last operational beach cart used in the Coast Guard, was actually used in a rescue in 1962 off of just south of Provincetown.
Awesome.
We also have, we go all the way from that history all the way up to the modern times, including a display on the two Coast Guard astronauts we have, one of which is a Cape Cod resident.
So what are some of the exhibits within this museum that people can get excited for? Can you describe some of them that are located around this building?
Sure. One of which, like I say, is a rescue cart. This is a complete set of accoutrements and stuff that they would have used to do the beach rescues. Upstairs is in the lighthouse and lightship room are a lot of artifacts from lightships and lighthouses that were present here on the Cape. There's obviously we can't have too many ships in here, boats, but we have a lot of models, including the Coast Guard cutter Campbell, which was built by a former coastie that lives up in Rhode Island, spent 5 years building that 5-foot model. We have a new model of the Cayuga, which was another model builder that's a large model. The aviation section has a lot of airplanes, models up there, of aviation throughout the Coast Guard history, which is this year is actually 101 years old since the Coast Guard's been flying. And a lot of uniforms. The Coast Guard changed its uniforms in 1974, so we have a lot of pre-1974 uniforms, in fact, going back to the Revenue Cutter Service as well as the Life-Saving Service and World War II and even before that.
So I understand there's been some updates. I hear that you might have a new audio tour.
Yes, we actually purchased it a couple of years ago, but this is the first year we've really gotten around to implementing it. So right now we have about 70 different commentaries throughout the museum. And there's 3 different types too. One type is history, covers the history of the building and the agencies and stuff. The second type is specifics associated with a particular artifact that you would see in the museum. But the third is what we refer to as personal stories or living history. Internally we refer to them as clean sea stories. But basically it's personal experiences that people that have had with the Coast Guard, and gives the listener a real sense of what it was like, you know, to actually be in the Coast Guard and have some of these experiences.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's all totally self-guided. There's little cards throughout the museum that basically tell you what the name of the commentary is, what it's about, what type it is, and how long it is.
That's awesome that people get to hear that. That's really cool.
We've gotten a lot of good reviews on it, so we're excited about it.
If people want to find out more information, where can they go to find out more about the U.S. Coast Guard Museum?
Sure. We have our own website, coastguardheritagemuseum.org, as well as a Facebook page, Coast Guard Heritage Museum on Facebook, and we'd welcome people's comments or questions, and there's a link to an email site, so they can email us, ask questions if they'd like.
And what are your hours?
We're open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., opening the 1st of May and staying open through the end of October.
Awesome. Well, today our guest is Buck Bailey, the Vice President of the U.S. Coast Guard Museum. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
For more information, you can visit those websites or give them a call.
Now let's find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. You can enjoy live music by the Hyannis Harbor at lunchtime every Friday this summer. The High Arts Shanties will feature a different musical guest every Friday at noon. This Friday, Ken Sylvia will be performing some classic R&B music. So pack a lunch, head down to Bismore Park this Friday at noon for a very relaxing lunch break. Well, are you having balance issues but still want to work out? Then Chair Support Yoga is the workout for you. This yoga program is great for anyone that struggles getting up and down off the floor. The class focuses on stretching, improving balance, and building strength in a very calm, supportive atmosphere from a chair and standing positions. It is free to all and is held every Wednesday at 10 at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. For more information, you can visit yoganeighborhood.org. Here's a look at this week's board, committee, and commission meeting schedule. Well, thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show for you. On tomorrow's show, we'll chat with Finance Director Mark Milne. We'll learn more about new programs for seniors at the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority and so much more. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mann.